into following on from yesterday, apologies. Maura's going to take a roll call. The broadcast statement applies from yesterday. We're not going to read it out again. So, Maura, you want to take a roll call?
Thank you, Chair. Members are hereby summoned to attend the reconvened meeting of the Planning Committee to be held hybrid socially distanced on the Thursday, the 19th of May. Alderman Alan Breslin. Alderman Alan Breslin.
Here.
Thank you, Alan. Alderman Derek Hussey.
Hi, online.
Thank you. Alderman Keith Kerrigan.
Tomorrow, online.
Thanks, Keith. Alderman Hilary McClintock.
Here, Maura.
In the chamber, thank you. Councillor Jason Barr. Councillor Barr. I'll come back. Councillor John Boyle sent his apologies yesterday. Councillor Angela Dobbins sent her apologies yesterday. Councillor Paul Gallagher.
And Shaw.
Thank you. Councillor Christopher Jackson.
And Shaw, Maura.
Thanks. Councillor Dan Kelly.
And Shaw, Maura.
Thanks, Dan. Councillor Patricia Logue sent her apologies yesterday. Councillor Kieran Maguire in the chamber. Councillor Philip McKinney sent his apologies yesterday. And Councillor Sean Mooney.
Here.
Thanks. That's it, Chair. Thank you. I'll go back just to double check. No, I think I have everyone. No, Councillor Jason Barr. No. Sorry, that's it, Chair. Thanks.
Okay. Any declaration of interest? Want to declare them now or wait to the item? Starting with item 6. And that's Katrina. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon.
Apologies. There's a late item. I'll just give a couple of minutes. We happy enough to move on?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, Katrina.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Item 6 is application LA11 2021-1071 outline. It's for proposed 2-number infill dwellings at lands adjacent and to the west of 63 Gordaclair Road, and the recommendation is to refuse. This slide shows the site identified in red. The application site is located approximately 0.3 kilometres east of Donamana. It's a roadside section of a larger agricultural field It's located on the southern side of Gordaclair Road between the dwellings at 61 and 63 Gordaclair Road. A laneway runs parallel to the western site boundary, which accesses agricultural sheds in the southwest corner of the field. This slide, the land within the site slopes upwards gently from the roadside to the south and also from west to east. The roadside boundary of the site is defined by approximately 67-metre high trees, a hedge and post and wire fence. The western site boundary with the adjacent laneway is post and wire fence. The eastern boundary with number 63 is timber ranch style fence, and the southern site boundary cuts through the larger field and is undefined. The southeast and southwest boundaries of the larger field are defined by a low stone earth bank and post and wire fence. The dwelling to the west, that's shown here in the bottom photo, is 61 Gordaclair Road, is a bungalow with an attached garage to the rear, and the dwelling to the east and the top photo is 63 Gordaclair Road and is a bungalow with a detached open-sided store to the rear. So slide 4 shows the concept plan that was submitted by the agent for the application of how they could envisage two dwellings to sit on this site. So the policy context is the Strabane Area Plan, a Strategic Plan and Policy Statement for Northern Ireland, Plan and Policy Statement 21, Plan and Policy Statement 2, Plan and Policy Statement 3, and Building on Tradition. So this map shows the existing development in the area and how it sits in the context of built and unbuilt development. And you can see the application site in red there. And as mentioned in the report, the gap sites that were approved are in green there. So in terms of policy CTY8, which is the infill policy that this site has been considered under, the adjacent dwellings at 61 and 63 Gordaclair Road both have frontage onto Gordaclair Road. The farm sheds in the southwest corner of the field do not have frontage onto Gordaclair Road nor contribute to any sense of frontage along this section of road. They're set back 80 metres from the road. They do not share any boundary with the road other than the access lane. They are relatively small with a low roof, and they are only visible from the corner of the site where any new dwellings on the site would screen the farm sheds also. There's a gap between the dwellings at 63 and 63A Gordaclair Road. This field had outline planning approval for 2 dwellings. This is in the slide here in green. One of the dwellings had a subsequent reserve matters approval and is now constructed at number 63A, whilst the remaining gap has a live outline planning approval for a dwelling. This has not been followed up with the reserve matters. Outline planning permission is not a building and does not contribute to development along the road frontage. So this shows the dwellings either side of the application site at present, and you can see even from the picture there's a bit of level difference as you go down the road. So slide 9, the top photo shows the sheds in the corner of the application site, and the bottom photo shows them in context. It's circled there with the sheds when you're driving from 63 to 61, with the site is in the middle of it. Slide 10, this shows the newly constructed dwelling at 63A, then the gap site that's still remaining, and then number 63 is to the right of the photograph there. So this shows the plan and history in the area. The previous photo shows site 4 that has recently been constructed, but site 3 remains undeveloped. Slide 12 shows the site photo approaching the site from the east, and this shows the site approaching it from the west. So approaching it from the east, the new dwellings will only read with the dwelling at number 63. The dwelling at 61 sits at a lower level below the site and is predominantly screened by vegetation. The sheds in the back corner of the field are relatively small with a low flat roof and only visible from the corner of the site. And from this vantage point, the new dwellings on the site would screen any existing views of the shed and would not be intervisible with them. So the policy consideration, under CTY8, this section of the road does not have a substantial and continuously built up frontage comprising a row of 3 buildings. Therefore, the proposal does not meet the exception set out in policy CTY8 in which 2 dwellings would be permitted. In terms of CTY8 and CTY14, The 2 new dwellings on the site will be visually linked with the dwellings at 61 and 63 Gordaclair Road when approaching from the west, and with the dwelling at 63 Gordaclair Road when approaching from the east. From these vantage points, the proposal would create a ribbon of development and result in a suburban style build-up of development, which would erode the rural character of the area and contrary to policies CTY 8 and CTY 14 of PPS 21. In terms of CTY 13, the site can provide a suitable degree of enclosure to integrate 2 dwellings into the AONB in accordance with policy CTY 13. So in terms of PPS 2 natural heritage, the roadside boundary has a line of mature trees with an interspersed hedge, which will have to be removed to provide access and visibility displays. The agent's ecological statement advises that they intend to transplant the existing trees behind the visibility displays, and those which do not survive will be replaced. NIEA Natural Environment Division recommends submission of a preliminary ecological assessment to assess the site for natural heritage interests, i.e. badgers, bats, birds, and a bat risk potential survey of any trees to be felled. The agent has requested that we proceed to determine the application on the information supplied, and they have not gone ahead with the PEA. We are concerned about the feasibility of successfully transplanting the roadside trees and whether they would survive. The transplanting process also has the potential to disrupt any habitats or species these trees may host. An assessment of the trees is considered necessary to ascertain their ecological value and any potential impacts the proposals may have. And in the absence of this information, the development is contrary to policies NH2 and NH5 of PPS 2. And this is a photograph showing the trees at the site, which you can see are very mature. And this is what the agent is proposing to remove and transplant. And that's what we had the concern with. So in terms of other policy consideration, residential amenity, there will be no overlooking, loss of light to any neighbouring properties subject to an appropriate design. In terms of PPS 3, the development proposes a new paired access onto Gordaclair Road, and DFI roads have no objections. And no letters of objections have been received, but we have received a late item of support from Daniel McCrossan, MLA. So in summary, the proposal is contrary to policy CTY 1. The proposal is not within a substantial and continuously built up frontage outlined as an exception to policy CTY 8. The proposal would create a ribbon of development contrary to policy CTY 8 and CTY 14. The proposal would result in a suburban style build-up of development contrary to policy CTY 14. And it has not been demonstrated the proposal would not harm or adversely impact protected or priority species or habitats or features of natural heritage importance, contrary to policies NH2 and NH5. So refusal is recommended. And the refusal reasons are contained in the report and on the slide here. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a speaker, Evie Rorty.
Hi. Can I go ahead?
Go ahead, Evie.
Thank you, Chair and Councillors, for the opportunity to address the Planning Committee on this planning application. I have read the Planning Committee report and would disagree with its findings, which concludes the planning permission should not be granted. There are 2 main points to the application. 1, the principle of development, and 2, the preliminary ecological assessment requested by NIEA. Number 1, CTY 1 of PPS 21 states that the planning permission will be granted for the development of a small gap site within a substantial and continuously built up frontage in accordance with policy CTY 8. The application meets the criteria of CTY 8 as it is a gap site that is only able to accommodate a maximum of 2 dwellings within a substantial and built up frontage. A substantial and built up frontage is defined as a line of 3 or more buildings along a road frontage. The application site is a gap site between number 63 Gordaclair Road and the farm sheds indicated. Number 61 is then adjacent to these farm sheds. There is an open-sided shed within the curtilage of 63. This shed is not entirely to the rear of the property and has its own frontage with the road. The committee report states that the open-sided shed is an unsubstantial ancillary structure and does not have road frontage. However, the PAC have continuously approved appeals where garages and outbuildings have been considered a part of the built-up frontage. A 2017 appeal states there is no distinction in policy between main or subordinate buildings. A building has frontage to a road if the plot on which it stands abuts or shares a boundary with the road. Furthermore, a 2019 appeal states there is nothing in policy that distinguishes between in-curtilage buildings, such as garages, and individual road frontage buildings on separate plots. It has been long accepted the garages and outbuildings can form part of a substantial and built-up frontage. The committee report also states that the two farm sheds do not contribute to the frontage as they are set back from the roadside. However, paragraph 5.33 of policy CTY8 states that buildings sited back, staggered, or at angles with gaps between them can still represent urban development if they have common frontage or they are visually linked. Therefore, the application site has buildings on either side of it, number 63 and its open-sided garage, and the two agricultural sheds and number 61 on the other. Clearly, this can be considered a substantial and built-up frontage in terms of policy CTY8. Therefore, the project clearly complies with policy CTY8. Permission was granted for two infills between 63 and 63A Clare Road. One of these dwellings has been built. This permission therefore remains live. There are a number of roadside buildings along Clare Road. The construction of these two dwellings would not create a suburban build-up or erode rural character of the area. The proposal respects the traditional settlement pattern in the area. It is not suburban and therefore complies with policy CTY 14. Number 2. DFI roads requires visibility displays of 2.4 by 50 metres. This will require the removal of some of the trees along the site frontage. The applicant intends to transplant these trees, i.e. remove them and then move them further back into the site to provide safe sightlines. It is proposed that any trees that do not survive this will be replaced with the same species. Regarding the impact on protected habitats and species, the trees can only be disturbed outside the bird nesting season. The same species of trees can be found on the applicant's land on the other side of the road, where backbots can be provided here if required. It is worth noting that these trees can legally be removed without planning permission and without the need for the requested reports outside of the nesting season. All work will be carried out by a professional arboriculturist and in line with all relevant legislation. The applicants are in their early 20s, a dental nurse and a machine operator. This is to be their first home. Their uncle has given them a site on the farm. These surveys can run into thousands of pounds, a significant expense for a young couple without the guarantee that planning permission will be granted at the end. The current owner of the site is currently off on long-term sick. The applicant intends on taking over the farm in the future and needs to live in the area to do so. A number of infills have been granted in the local area recently. There has been no request for PEAs in these applications and no indication from planning or NIEA that badgers will be present in these cases. NIEA weren't consulted in the 2019 application at number 61 Clare Road, less than 150 metres from the application site. We believe NIEA and the Plan Department have taken an inconsistent approach in this case, and a PEA is not required. The proposal therefore complies with policies NH2 and NH5. I would therefore, on behalf of our client, respectfully request the councillors overturn the officer recommendation and approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Aoibhinn. Any questions for the applicant? No? Councillor Kerrigan.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. Aidan, can you just confirm your reasons then? I know you have touched on it there, but you're content enough then in that the fourth reason for refusal is stating that, sorry if I can get it up here, contrary to SPPS and policies NH2, you're content that in your case you haven't needed to supply, what is it, the impacts is not likely to harm, demonstrate the development is not likely to harm or result in unacceptable adverse impacts on protected species. You're content enough in that with you transplanting those trees and moving them back into the field, anything that does need to be removed, that you have not needed to supply anything additional to planners. You're happy enough with that? I'm just seeking clarification on that point. Thank you.
Yeah, well, our point would be that outside of the nesting season, these trees can be removed legally by the applicant without having to do the reports. Obviously, if it came across bats or birds nesting, then the applicant will have to stop and report that. But legally, these can be removed. Or if it was not easier, if it was acceptable, we would propose a condition that a report could be done for the Reserve Matters application. That way, it would give the applicant some comfort that spend £3,000 to £4,000 on reports would still lead to planning permission in the end.
Any more questions?
Chair in the chat box.
Derek, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Aileen, the officer in her presentation referred to trees being felled, but I mean, you're quite clearly telling us there's no intention to fell trees, rather to move trees to provide the sightlines for access. Can you simply confirm that?
Yeah, there's no intention to fell the trees. The trees will be transplanted. If in the process some didn't survive, they will be replanted with the same species.
That's grand. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, Evan, you referenced an appeal in 2016. Would you have the reference number of that?
Sorry, it was 2017 and 2019. The first one is 2017/A0109. And that was the one for there's no distinction within policy between main or subordinate buildings. And the second one was 2019/A0093. And that was there's nothing in policy that distinguishes between the in-curtilage buildings and individual road frontage buildings.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay. Questions for that? Thank you, Evan. Questions now for the officer? Sorry. Dan?
Sorry, yeah, it's Dan here, Chair. I'm having a little bit of difficulty. I was hoping to get a question to the agent.
Okay, Evan, you able for another question?
Yep.
Okay. Go ahead, Dan.
Thanks, Chair. And thanks for the presentation, Aidan. I just going through some of the things you said here. Can you just confirm it is a family member that's applying for this, and it's on a family land, I suppose? That's one of the things just to pick up on, because I'm always very interested where I can see, I suppose, succession planning in terms of rural farming. The other thing is in relation to the trees and potentially the bats. I mean, it's now coming into the time of year when bat surveys can be done. So if the committee were minded, maybe this is a more question for the officer chair in terms of a negative condition around this, if we can approve it at this stage with a negative condition attached for that work to be done, or whether that has to be done before. I think we've been here before, and I think the answer was that we have to do that before an outline permission can be granted. So I just need to clarify that legal sort of scenario. So maybe just take those two things.
Yeah, it's the applicant's uncle owns the site, and she's interested in farming with him. So as I said, he's currently sick and she's helping out with the intention that she would eventually take over the farm from him when he's no longer able. We're happy to accept a negative condition. Obviously, as you say, it could be more of a question for the officer.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions just before we? Okay, Evan, thank you. Questions now for the officer? Dan, and then Derek.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I suppose it's just that question around whether the application, if it was to be, if the committee were reminded to overturn the recommendation, can that in fact happen legally around that environmental stuff? So just if that could be clarified. And the other question is in relation to the previous grant of planning approval, where one of the houses has been built and one of the houses has not been built. Given that it's a single application that has been started, and I appreciate the second structure isn't actually on site, but why does planning not regard that then, that whole frontage as being part of the one planning in terms of the assessment? Why was that negated? If that could be clarified for me as well. Thanks, Chair.
Hey, Suzanne, you're going to take it all here, maybe the first part?
I'll come in, Chair, on the first bit, and Katrina can come in on the frontage. Councillor Kelly, yes. In terms of the consideration of the natural heritage issues, those would have to be considered now at outline stage. We wouldn't be in a position to condition, the requirement of a bat survey, and that's not even what we're looking at here. We're just looking at probably a bat roost potential survey here. Those issues are required for us to assess under policy NH5 of PPS2. So it's quite important that, if members are minded today to approve this, that we would hold off until we would get that information in. I mean, the issue clearly is that whilst trees are being transplanted, we have no method statement or nothing. If that doesn't happen, we are required by NH3 or NH5 to look at mitigation or compensatory measures. So we would have to apply that policy, and it's not something that we would be recommending that would be legally able to be conditioned. So in terms of the frontage, Katrina's just going to come in the details on that.
Yeah, so in terms of the, just put the slide up there to show where the gap site is. So 63A, the whole green line was allowed for 2 sites. 63A, they applied for reserve matters, but they haven't on the other side of it. So an outline site, because it's no development, the policy refers to buildings, it doesn't refer to sites. So until a building would be there, like they may never construct a building there, so we can't go on just permission for a site. So the way we considered it was 61 and 63 are 2 buildings, and there isn't a third building. Avon had referred to the open-sided structure at 63 as being a building, but it is located directly behind 63 and does not share a road frontage with the site. So hope that clarifies it.
Okay, Councillor Kelly.
No, Chair. Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate both officers' responses, but I wonder could maybe just a little bit more detail, because the question really is why the entire frontage of that application site, although I appreciate it's for 2 buildings and one is constructed, why is the entire frontage between number 63 and number 65 not considered as a single frontage? It was a single application. That's the query.
I'll just find the slide here to show you that it doesn't read as a frontage. There's still a gap site, and the policy clearly states that it should be 3 buildings. Just find it here. So we've considered it under the policy. You can see here 63A to the left of the photograph that's been developed. Then there's a gap site. Then you can only see the roof of 63. So it doesn't read as a full row. There is a gap there at the minute. Like maybe it would be different if the house was constructed, then that would be, that would be a building there, and then it would read as 3. But as it is currently on the ground, there is a gap there and there isn't 3 structures in a row.
Councillor Kelly, any more to add?
No, Chair. I think I don't know. I'm not getting the answer to the question. But anyway, thanks.
Okay. Councillor Hussey.
I'm okay, Chair. My query was answered in Councillor Kelly's responses. Thank you.
Okay. Suzanne wants to come back on that just.
Yeah, just following on from what Katrina was saying, it's how it reads on the ground. Clearly, obviously on the map, you know, there are a number of buildings along on the road, but on the ground it doesn't read because of the gaps, because of the topography, and because of the road, and because of the vegetation. So it's how it actually reads on the ground that we're looking at. And I just wanted to point out as well, you know, the issue about the building behind number 63 is really important. It doesn't front the road. And one of those appeal statements that the agent has referenced, you know, the commissioner does give weight to a garage, but that garage fronts the road. It has a frontage. The building behind 63 doesn't. As Katrina has highlighted, it's directly behind the house. It's actually probably outside the curtilage as was originally approved. So we'll not even go there. But, you know, those are the facts in terms of considering if something fronts the road or not.
Does that answer, Councillor Kelly?
Thanks, Chair. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions? We're going to need a proposal. No questions? Any proposals?
Chair, maybe if I just come in with some clarification, because listening to Suzanne, I'm not sure what exactly I'm minded not to agree with the officer recommendation, but I'm not clear what I can propose. I suppose is what I'm asking for some clarification on. I mean, the point I'm asking is really, can I make a proposal to overturn, or am I just basically permitted to make a proposal to defer for the further information? I'm not clear on that, so maybe just if that could be clarified, thanks.
Guessing that you make a proposal and Philip will give us how legal it is, would that be?
Okay.
Just give us a minute.
Right.
Yeah, so Chair, thank you very much for the time. To achieve the aim that I think Councillor Kelly is looking at, I think the best proposal would be for, if members were minded to go in that direction, would be for them to delegate this application back to officers with a direction that it should be approved upon receipt of satisfactory environmental information. And in the absence of that information being received within a period of time, take some advice in what would be a reasonable period of time in relation to that, that the matter should then be brought back to committee. Or if the information wasn't satisfactory, then the matter could be brought back to committee, or alternatively, officers or delegated to officers in the absence of receipt of satisfactory information that officers would then refuse. But that would be a matter for members. The principle would be that it would be delegated back to officers with a direction that upon receipt of the satisfactory information, the matter should be approved.
Sorry, Chair's just brought me in there. Clearly, what we've done before, members, if officers don't receive satisfactory information, that the application would be returned to committee for reconsideration. Is that okay? Just following up there on what Philip was saying. Thanks. A reasonable time frame? 3 months, we would say, in terms of consultation and receipt.
Okay, Councillor Kelly, happy enough with that?
I am, Chair, yeah. I don't think you need me to reiterate the proposal as outlined there by both officers.
Okay. And second with Councillor Minnie. Okay. Anyone against? Oh. Councillor Kelly, the reason?
Oh yeah, sorry, Chair. Yeah, the reason are I have looked at the application and I read the whole as one continuous lineup, and I know what the officer is saying, but I didn't get the answer in relation to why it wouldn't read as one. And I know it's on the ground, but I'm looking at it as one long continuous frontage from across all of the buildings. So in a sense, the building at the back or the shed is sort of irrelevant to the consideration. Also in terms of the need, I think that has been explained to my satisfaction, you know, that this is it deals with the issue of succession planning around the farm. And this is the house that the niece who is inheriting the farm will take on and work following handover from her uncle, who's now ill, has been stated. And she's already working on the farm because of that. And the other issue around in terms of that application of C2Y8, I think it's fair to apply the interpretation as given in Strabane area plan, particularly at 120.5 in the AONB policy, given the situation that pertains across the AONB in terms of population decline and the decrease in the housing stock and the
Okay, that's second by Councillor Sean Minnie.
yeah,
Is there
sorry,
any-
Chair. It's 120.5.1. Sorry, it took me a minute there to find it. And in view of the foregoing, the department considers that a less restrictive planning policy could be applied throughout that part of the area beyond the Strule Valley policy area. That's the reference I was looking for in that. Thank you, Chair.
Is there anyone against? No. Is there any abstentions? No. So unanimous. Thank you, Katrina. Malachy, you're item 7. You're ready?
Thank you, Chair. Item 7 is LA 11 2021 1109F. It's a full plan application for an extension to existing household to provide 10 number additional ensuite bedrooms with additional living and kitchen facilities. The application is located at 43 Governor Road, Derry, and the recommendation is to approve. The application site is located at the corner of Governor Road and Duncreggan Road, Derry, at an existing number 43 is known locally as Ash Villas. You'll see from the images here, it's a standalone property just off the Duncreggan Road, detached, and currently has planning permission to operate as a hostel. The existing elevations are set out before you here. The front elevation from Duncreggan Road. As it stands, you'll notice the detached property, sort of unique in terms of character when set against the sort of more traditional terraced properties in the location. And this photograph will give you an idea of the location of the development site from Governor Road and the general area where the proposed extension is to be located.
This is an hour view of the site from looking back towards the front of the site on Duncreggan Road. So the proposal is for an extension to provide 10 number en-suite properties. The extension is in the form of a two-storey addition within the footprint of the planning unit known as Ash Villas. There will be a single-storey extension linking the proposed two-storey extension to the existing property known as Ash Villas. The principal elevation of the new extension will front onto Duncreggan Road and has the design is such that to take into account the character that exists in Duncreggan Road as it stands, that has two-storey or 2.5-storey terraced red brick properties. The proposed block plan, you'll see here, the cursor is that the site, the single-storey extension which links the existing Ash Villas and existing hostel with the proposed two-storey extension on the Duncreggan Road, which will take on the appearance of a terrace. The existing floor plans and the elevations, you'll see it is operating currently as a hostel for visiting foreign students. The current footprint, the current floor plans show accommodation, basically bunk bed accommodation. So you have multiple occupants in each rooms, and they have shared kitchen facilities, etc., which was considered under a previous application before committee. The proposed floor plans, again, there's some additional shared facilities and then additional rooms will be provided within the two-storey extension. The purpose of the extension and the reasoning for the extension is new requirements in terms of accommodating students, in terms of how many we have to move away from, I suppose, the bunk bed shared facilities to more bespoke one-off rooms for each occupant. Again, these are new requirements in response to the evolving requirements. So brought up by COVID, etc. So the policy context is set out there before you in the report. The Derry Area Plan, PPS free in terms of parking. The SPPS, PPS 7 in terms of the proposed extension and given the proposed use, PPS 16. There are a number of consultees, NI Water, responded the proposal can be approved on the basis of the like-for-like loading. The FA Roads assessment that the number of vehicles attracted to the site will not be above the 5% threshold of intensification, as outlined in DCAN 15. Environmental health, a noise assessment condition has been provided to protect the amenity of existing residents. So that's attached as well for consideration. There's been one representation to the application. It's summarised here and the responses detailed in the planning report. The main issues relating to traffic, the intensification of the site given the new use in recent years, the residential character of Governor Road and Duncreggan Road, and again the balance of the character of the type of accommodation provided in the area and the associated issues with such accommodation. So we've alluded to a few times to the planning history. So the plan history under consideration here is LA 11 2018 1186, where planning permission was granted from what was previously a dwelling at this site to a hostel accommodation for the Northwest Academy International Language School. And there was a number of alterations, extensions. So the use has been established at the site and is operating at the time of the planning application under consideration here. So this is an extension to the existing use. Under PPS 7, there's a number of matters to take into account, such as character and design. Officers are satisfied that the the applicant has taken into account the existing character and design in the locality, and has proposed something which is in compliance and respectful of the character and design of the locality. In terms of layout, scale and massing, again, officer satisfied that, that the proposed development has put forward a layout, scale and a massing that's acceptable under policy. There is no issues in relation to archaeological sites or monuments. There's a small, in terms of open space, there's a small garden and yard provided to the rear and side of the building, which will provide a level of private open space, which we believe is adequate for the proposed use and the nature of the proposed use. The site is also within walking distance of public parks and recreational areas in the city. In terms of local neighbourhood facilities, given the scale of the development, there is no requirement to provide additional local neighbourhood facilities. We've been patterning the site as well connected to existing roads and footpaths and cycleways. And in terms of parking, the main issue here is the capacity of the hostel will be unaltered. Although this is an extension, it's a physical extension, it's not an intensification of the use. Accommodation numbers will remain the same for the proposed hostel. There's no proposal for additional occupants. It's just so students all arrive by bus transfer, which was considered the full application for the use. And DFA roads accept that there's no intensification. Therefore, we're satisfied that there's adequate parking for the proposed development. In terms of adjacent land uses, we've considered the impact of the extension. We do not believe there's going to be any direct overlooking on any of the neighbouring properties. The layout and design is such that it's not going to have an impact on the privacy of any surrounding properties. And any noise and disturbance will be subject to separate legislation by EHD should any complaints arise. We're satisfied that the proposal, again, has been established, the use has been established, so there's no issues in terms of its complying with the relevant tourism policies within the plan and SPPS and PPS 16. So in conclusion, officers recommend that it's been demonstrated that the proposal is a quality design, it's considered to be suitable for this location. It's located in the central area within the walking distance of the city. Officers recommend that there be no adverse impacts on amenity through the proposal, and we're satisfied that all our issues have been considered and all material considerations, including objections, have been considered as well, and our recommendation would be to approve. Thank you, Chair.
There is an agent for speaking on this. Kevin Strathern.
Yes, Chair.
Yep.
Can you hear me? Yes. Hello, can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I really don't have, because it's recommended approval, I don't really have much to add. The only thing that I would like to add, I suppose, is that this facility has been run very well, and it's the only one in the town that has NITB approval of this type of hostel accommodation. So it has got, a high standard of approval. And I would just reaffirm that this is not an extension, as Malachy has said. It's a redistribution of bed space within the extension, and so there won't be really any impact on anybody from the local area. And unless somebody has any questions, that's really all that I have to say.
Okay, any questions? No, thank you, Kevin. Any questions for the officer? Any proposals? Christopher?
Good Chair. No, just a brief question to Malachy. Malachy, I know it's contained within the report, but just for clarity, the only reason why this application is coming to committee is because the applicant's an elected member. Otherwise, this would have been a delegated approval. I just want clarity in relation to that. Thanks, Chair.
Yes, I can confirm that's the only reason it's before committee.
Okay. Any proposals?
Chair, on that basis, I'm content to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation to approve.
Second, Councillor Sean Mooney. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Okay, unanimous. Item 8 is a boathouse. Don't think we even have a boat. But Malachy, can you take us through this briefly? If you can.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Item 8 is LA11 2021-08-11F. It's a full application for a proposed boat store within an existing boat storage yard, and the recommendation is to approve. The application site is located off of Victoria Road and adjacent to the existing Braham Boathouse. It's in the car parking area. There's an existing open yard with a fence surrounding it in the car parking area associated with the Braham Boathouse. So again, you'll see the aerial view if you come off of Victoria Road. There's the general parking area, and it's just up here where the orange arrows pointing. And this image will give you an idea of the exact situation at the minute. There is a palisade fence surrounding an open yard. So the proposed floor and elevations are set out before you. Again, it's a fairly standard storage building. The purpose of the building, as it says it's a boat storage, so it'll be used in association with the boathouse. Policy context is set out before you and also detailed in the report. We consulted a number of bodies given the nature and location of the proposal, including NIA, Locks Agency, Environmental Health, SES, and Rivers agencies. There's no objections from any of the statutory consultees and other consultees. NED have cleared the proposal subject to conditions relating to water pollution, and SES are content that there's no issues subject to the conditions proposed by NIA. Environmental Health had some initial concerns given the location but potential contamination from previous land uses. However, following confirmation that no excavation is necessary for the proposed boat store, these concerns are alleviated. But as a precaution, conditions relating to unexpected contamination have been provided, which is a fairly standard approach in such situations. The boat store is ancillary to the existing boat club within its curtilage and hard standing. The nearest unassociated developments are the Foil Search and Rescue base and a dwelling and commercial garage located somewhat across the Victoria Road. There will be no impact on amenity due to the nature, scale, location and distance from any existing property. The store itself is approximately 108 square metres and 4.2 metres in height. We finished in grey profile metal cladding and there'll be a small ramp to the electronic roller shutter door. It'll be again enclosed by the existing fence and there'll be no change to that part of the site. And as I say, it's a fairly discrete site off the Victoria Road. It's considered that the design is appropriate for its use and location. It will not have any impact in terms of additional parking or access. The site is within an area zoned for open space and recreation, so there'll be no conflict. This will be an ancillary element to a recreational use. Provides additional covered storage for the boathouse. Therefore, it will enhance the existing recreational facilities in the locality. As I say, the consultees have considered, the issues, and there's no objections subject to conditions. So officers would recommend approval of the proposal subject to the proposed conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Malachy. Any questions for the officer? Derek?
Thank you, Chair. Can we assume that, similar to the last application, because this is a council application, it's come before a committee, otherwise it would probably have just been a straight delegated decision? Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Chair, in the absence of any questions, I propose the recommendation.
Okay, seconded.
I second it.
That was seconded by Councillor Mooney. Sorry, Councillor Breslin. Anyone against? Any abstentions? No, unanimous. Okay, thank you. That's the end of the applications. I want to go back to the main agenda now. Item 7, and Conscious is taking it.
Good afternoon, members. This application is regarding a number of consultations which have been received from Donegal County Council. They're received fairly recently. There's two main proposals. First is a proposed variation to the existing county development plan in order to introduce a change to their wind energy policy. And the second is that they are at the very early stages of kicking off to review and prepare a new county development plan in Donegal. So members, if it's okay, I've prepared a letter at the appendix, a draft of a letter. I'll just briefly take you through the two proposals and what the issues are. First consultation is to do with the proposed variation to the wind energy policy. So we have received a document on the proposed variation itself, and we've received two environmental consultation reports. Sorry, a consultation on two environmental reports that go along with it. Members will recall at January, at the start of the year, we previously had a consultation on this same wind energy policy, and it was to do with the environmental reports or the scoping for those environmental reports. So we went back to their council, and basically now they're bringing it formally forward, this policy, with the environmental reports. So we've received two consultation letters, and they're included at the appendix there. In summary, their amendment to their wind energy policy is a number of changes to the text. They are introducing a 10 times rotor diameter from any turbines, and they're also have a new map which they propose to include in their county development plan. Basically, that divides the county into red and amber areas and some notional white areas as well. The red areas are the most sensitive designated areas where they normally not permissible. So it's quite a bit of the county that would say no, they're against wind turbine development. And then there's another part of the county, probably about a third of it, is amber, and that's open for consideration. So they're proposing to introduce this map and the text changes to their county development plan. They have submitted the two environmental reports along with them. The SA about environmental generally, the SEA report, and we've gone through it. It's quite a long report that sets out the whole range of environmental effects and then how they tick off the boxes against how they've all been considered. I suppose overall, it seems to be reasonable, and like we'd really take issue with it. The second environmental report is an appropriate assessment or a habitats regulation report, and again, it's similar regarding their impact on European sites. And again, the report seems to be, to have ticked all the boxes, gone through and considered all the environmental implications on the European sites. So we've commented on that in the response letter. Members, the second matter which we've received consultations is, as I say, they have undertaken a review, a sort of very short review document, and issues and options on paper on their new county development plan. It will run for 6 years from 24 to 30. So they've submitted a issues and options paper there, and sort of looking at the success or progress of their existing county development plan. And members will also see that you received a late item, which is basically a scoping report for the SEA, which goes along with their new county development plan. It's quite interesting, their issues and options paper. Some of their policies probably haven't worked as well as they would have wanted to. And that's something that they've identified, and they'll probably try and review them. So regarding the scoping paper for the environmental report, again, that sets out all the environmental considerations that they are proposing to take into account. And it seems to be reasonable. So yeah, it seems fine. We proposed, suppose our recommendation, members, is that we have prepared a draft letter to go to Donegal. It's as normal, as we're trying to be very positive, but cover all the boxes and all the points raised. So we would need to just that letter with an amendment to refer to the late item, the scoping report that we've received. So members, that's the recommendation, that that members note the contents of the paper and agree for this letter to be issued to Donegal County Council before the 3rd of June, with that small amendment to do with the scoping report. Happy to take any questions, members.
Okay, any questions before we take a proposal?
Chair, I have a question. It's Dan here.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Precious, and thanks for the report. That's very useful. I'm kind of following up on the previous day. I'm not sure. I mean, it's not relevant really to this this letter, but I'm just wondering what is the situation in Donegal County Council in relation to visual amenity and how they assess that. Is it similar to ourselves? I'm just thinking, from what is the area that's earmarked for as open to consideration? It probably has a visual impact more than anything on our council area, because you're kind of looking across either the foil or whatever towards it. So I'm just wondering what is the technical assessment? Is it similar to ours, or is it something different? I know the 10 times rotor diameter is in there in terms of protecting their own local residents, but I'm just wondering what is the situation, I suppose, for us in our council area.
Thank you, Councillor. It seems from reading through their paper, the way that they have decided the various categorization is that they have really used a GIS spatial layer method. So they've put on a layer for all their say for their European sites, for their each of the special like heritage sites for there's a whole series of layers of protection. And they seem to have obviously gone, they've covered a lot of their high ground over a lot of the district. They've also put a layer around their population centres, each of the settlements. And they have a layer which has got, what they call visually sensitive, what they've called visually sensitive areas. And that's applied as well. Most of the, what I suppose, I don't know, across most of the foil, the lowland, maybe a lot of the lower lands, so it's not all low, it doesn't tick any of those boxes, and therefore that becomes the amber. So a lot of the south of our border area from, I think is from, say, Claudy or Castlefin on ahead down, would be in the red area because it's ticked some of those spatial layers. But from Castlefin really up north, up to just north of Derry, that's in an amber area. And then again, over in parts of Buncreggan or Inishowen seems to have ticked a lot of the red sensitive area boxes as well. So it's really a GIS, a spatial layer approach that they have done, which has identified the most sensitive areas where they, well, basically there's a strong presumption against renewable energy in those areas.
Okay, Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Branches. That's very useful. Chair, if there's nobody else, I'm happy to propose the letter and the report as presented.
Okay, a seconder. Councillor Mooney. Anyone against? Abstentions? No, unanimous. Items 8, 9 and 10 are for information. Is there any questions, queries on it? No. Propose we go into confidential. Councillor Kerrigan, Councillor Mooney,